FQ12, deep dive. Let's go. Now then guys, welcome back to Range 23. My name's Bob. Back in the workshop today in our natural habitat, and as promised we've got a deep dive video on the FQ12 underlever shotgun. I'm going to show you how to fully strip the gun down, rebuild it, show you all the working parts of it. Also some good points and some bad points to the gun, so a little bit nerdy, but if you're into it, you're into it. So there are a few levels of kind of strip down we can do on this gun. You can do a very basic field strip, which is completely toolless, where we take the fore end off and the barrel out, etc. And we can just kind of get in there to give it a clean, or swap the barrel out for something longer or shorter if we want. So that's completely toolless. But if we want to go a little bit further, maybe remove this trigger group, this bolt, we are going to want a few little tools. So then those are going to be a set of punches, hammer for those punches, preferably not a 22-pound 18-inch demolition hammer, but it's all I had lying around, and also a flathead screwdriver. I think it's like a 4 or 5 mil flathead screwdriver. We'll want a little tub to put our bits in. This is a lovely cart door vanilla tub, pretty boring, pretty bland. I was hoping to have maybe a bit of Neapolitan or something for you, spice the video up, but not to worry. And then as well, if we want to go even further than that and start removing the buttstock, etc., and stripping everything down off the gun, we'll want a, I believe it's a number 2 posi, or even a Phillips it might be, a screwdriver, and probably also a socket set. That might not be the right size, but whatever. I'll annotate what you need on the video. Yeah, so let's get into it. Okay guys, just before we begin to field strip the gun, we'll just go over the externals of it, some good and bad things on it. I'll take you through the markings on the gun first. So we've got FQ loading system here, FQ12 on there, and that is mirrored on this side as well. Our proof marks are on the bolt and the receiver here, and you've got serial on the bolt and a serial on the receiver as well. The barrel has here Barathrum arms, 12 gauge, 76mm chamber, proof tested, made in Turkey, and then an EB number after that. And on the underside of the barrel, you'll see when we take it off later on, there is also some proof marks stamped into that. I think overall the finish of the gun externally is pretty nice actually. You'll have to ignore all these dings and scratches and stuff out of my stock. They weren't there when the gun was new. I've just put them on via using it. Okay, so to begin field stripping this gun, obviously it's empty, we're not daft. We're going to start by removing this nut on the magazine tube here. This just threads off by hand. That's a nice little aluminium nut there. It's got a little steel sling loop on it there, just kind of C-clamped around it. We have decent cancellation on there as well, just to get a bit of bite on that fore end. You can get it on there nice and tight. Once that's off, handguard just slides straight off. This handguard is quite thin, but it's nicely finished actually. Some nice checkering on there. It's a nice little piece of wood. And then we've got a little retaining ring around there as well. I think that's plastic. Oh no, it's steel, look. So a little steel ring there. No cancellation or anything on there. Right, next we're going to remove this nut here. This is another nut which is the barrel clamp nut. So we start unthreading that. And then slide up and engage them threads there. Again, this is just a little aluminium nut, decent cancellation on there, nice nailing on it as well, so you can take it all on and off by hand. Once that's off, we can pull our barrel out. I just do mine with the action fully closed, nice and easy, just slides straight out. So this is our 13.5 barrel. We'll take a look at that in depth in a little bit. And that is the kind of basic, as far as you can go toolless with this, you know, if you want to swap a barrel out or whatever, or do a bit of basic cleaning on it. Well, actually, no, we can do one more thing without tools, potentially. It depends if how well your magazine tube's fitted. Mine is not Loctited in, so I can just take it out by hand. So we'll take our magazine tube out. Obviously, we have got spring tension. The magazine tube just has a plunger in there to keep it in, but we'll take this out. And like I said, bear in mind, this is under spring tension. That's going to fire off like a fucking Scud missile if I'm not careful. There we go. Alright, there we are. So we've got our nice little anodised follower there, red anodised aluminium follower, our mag spring, and our mag tube with our end stop. Just a little plastic end stop. That's the mag tube. Next step is going to be the removal of the trigger guard and the bolt. And for that, we're going to want an armourer's block, but seeing as how I've been busy machining these for the last month, I don't know where anything is in my workshop. So, what we're going to use... Jesus Christ. I've just installed a wood burner, so I've got logs everywhere. So we're going to use Nature's armouring block, which... oh, Jesus. Give it a little tappy tap tap. There we go. That's our trigger group pin. Oh my God, get rid of them. Our little pin there, you can see the two little retaining slots cut in that. It is universal, you can put it in either way around, you can't get it wrong. Put that in there for now. That is the only pin holding our trigger in. We need to undo this screw here, which is obviously the pivot point for the lever. You see there, it just comes through and it's threaded. So this is where we need our flathead screwdriver. I think this is a 4.5mm maybe. Just give it a little wiggle so it's nice and free. You can see our little pin there. Put that side, and then this will pop straight out of there. And this is where things get a little bit jiggly and jangly. I'm not going to bother taking this one out because I don't actually need to do. Then to get this trigger group out, this will just pop out, but you'll see it's got a little lug in the back here which is angled, so you have to actually kind of pull it out the gun forward. And if mine, especially, I don't know what anyone else is like, but mine is extremely tight. So we get our hammer and just use the nice rubberized handle of the hammer because we're not animals here, and just give it a little tap. There we go, that's nice and loose, and that should. Was it loose or was I just initial thinking? There we go. Now that's our trigger group out of the gun. Now what we can do now is pull our bolt out. Look, this is what I said about things getting a little bit janky. We've got all this lot hanging around. You could take that all apart if you want. I'm not going to bother right now. There's our bolt. That just sits on top of this, on top of these action bars. Once you pull that forward, that'll just jump out. We'll put that to a side there, and then if you can see here, we've got another little pin which connects this action bar to the actual lever action. There we go. It's an extremely loose fitting pin, but yeah, just a standard pin. No, it's not captive or anything like that. There's nothing keeping it in there. And then there's your action bars. So put that to a side. And then there we go. We've got our trigger mech, and that's our lever action. You could, in fact, take this screw out as well, but you've no real need to. I have no real need to at the minute anyway. Put that to the side. I say that's our trigger group and our shell lifter and everything like that there. And we'll take the stock apart actually. Yeah, let's do it. Let's take the stock apart whilst we're here. So yeah, you can see, sorry, I'll show you that. That's a little lug that just kind of mates into there. And it can be quite tight. Man, the first few times I did mine, that was extremely tight. But let's move all that over there then. What we're going to want, let's penetrate that rubber. Okay, so that's our little plasticky rubber butt pad off the gun, and you can see it's just held in with two little Phillips drive wood screws. And then you can see we can get down into our stock, get all the excess wood shavings out of it. To our nut there. Let's see, I don't know what size that'll be. I'm estimating a 13. The tech's using metric, yeah, probably. Let's have a look. Yeah, baby, 13. So there we go, there's our stock off. I'm not going to bother taking the sling loop out because I don't really care for it, but like I say, not a nice solid stock. Nothing wrong with that. It's not a bad little piece of wood, that. And there you go, there's all the kind of major component parts of the gun laid out. We are going to go a little bit further. We're going to strip down this trigger group and also this bolt, but I'll do them individually once I've moved everything else out of the way because they're a little bit more finicky. Okay, just before we strip the bolt and the trigger group down, I'll show you the actual lever on the gun and the action. I'm not going to bother stripping this down, it's not really any point. It's literally a single flathead screw there which runs through with that roller on it there. And then there's a tiny little spring plunger there. A little spring detent that just wants a little like a forkhead flathead to take it out. But yeah, I'm not going to actually bother taking them apart because they're not needed for this, but they're pretty self-explanatory. I'll take them apart. Let's start with the bolts, because that's what most people probably want to take apart. So there's our bolt with our extractor on there, our firing pin at the back. It is a sprung firing pin, and then our locking bolt there, our locking lug, should I say, on the bolt. So in order to strip the bolt down, we are going to want to drop this roll pin here. This roll pin is the one that holds the firing pin in place, and in turn let me get that little dog hair off there, you don't want to see that. And in turn the firing pin holds the actual locking bolt, the actual lug in place, sorry. So we'll start by taking them out. So this roll pin is pretty tight, so let's give that a few little love taps. Start to get that out of there. Whee! I was just about to say, whatever you do, don't let the firing pin fire out. But it did. So there's our firing pin and our firing pin spring. Nothing to write home about, just a standard steel firing pin. Pop that in there. You can leave that roll pin in slightly. It will allow the firing pin to come out, so you don't have to take it fully out and have a ball ache trying to put it back in. And then once the firing pin's out, our lug will come straight out the gun as well. You can see that channel through the lug there. Sorry, where the Jesus Christ. You can see that channel all the way through where this is allowed to pivot on the firing pin, and thus lock the bolt. Put them aside, and there's our carrier with the extractor in. We'll take this pin out here that holds the extractor in place. You have to take this out from the bottom. You have to knock it out the bottom. You can see there it's got like a head on it there, and that's the bottom of the pin. So we want a really thin punch, and it might, it's not going to push out, but it might just tap out. Whee! There we go. Leave that in there. So it's quite a small pin, but you can see it's got quite a big head on it, so it only goes in and out one way. And then when we take that out, our extractor's not going to fly out the gun because it's kind of L-shaped and hinged in there, so we're going to try and just pull it out. Well, look, you see it coming out. No! Whoa. Whew. Getting lucky tonight, aren't you? So there's our extractor, and you see it's chamfered there, which will allow, obviously, the shells as they're coming up, it allows the shells to seat nicely. So we'll put that to a side, extractor, and then a plunger for the extractor as well, which just sits down this channel. The spring's in there. I can't get the spring out because I don't have anything small enough to get in there, but it is, I don't know if you can see it, but it is sat down in that channel there. So I'm not going to take that apart anymore, I don't really need to do. Right then guys, we are going to take apart the trigger group next. This is trigger group and shell lifter mech, obviously, all housed in this single piece aluminium unit here, this housing. Everything else on this is steel, all the shell lifter, all the hammers, etc., springs and pins, etc., all steel, but all housed in an aluminium kind of chassis there. Well, first thing we need to do is remove this centre pin here. This is the pin that we removed from the gun earlier, the first pin we knocked out to remove the trigger group. This one here, that slides straight through there, and that's what the shell lifter mech pivots on, with that pin there. And you can see we've got our spring retention in there, so when we push it in, obviously it clamps and stops the pin walking out. Like I say, that pin is universal. There's only one spring, there isn't a spring on this side, so it doesn't matter which way you put that in. But the easiest way to get this out is just to put the pin in from reverse look and pull the full thing out like this. Make sure you hold on to everything there so it don't fly off. Then we can put them to a side. It's the easiest way to stop that spring flying off and getting lost. So we'll put them in there, and then our shell lifter should. So we need to let the hammer up, safety off, hammer up, lock, and then make sure we've got a spring here, look, for the shell lifter mech, but we should be able to just pop that off like that. There's our shell lifter mech. Nothing much to see on there. And then, like I say, this is your spring and your plunger there as well that have a tendency to fly out, so you've got to make sure they don't fly out, but nothing too fancy there. Let's put them in our bucket of bits, and then you can see we're just left with the trigger and the safety mech there as well. You can see in here as well, we've got some rollers for the action. This is what, there's a roller in the back here and a roller there, steel rollers. That's obviously where this action runs through. So cock the gun. Vincishooter's got a real good video on a strip down, and he's also done some little modifications to his, put like lighter spring safety and lighter hammer spring in, and also sorted out some of these rollers. So let's take out, what we're going to take out first, let's take out the hammer. So the hammer, you can see again, very similar to the shell lifter, it's got a spring and a plunger underneath of it there. So we want to make sure the hammer's all the way up, and then we're going to knock this pin out here. We might even just push out this one, I can't, yeah, just push straight out, look. And make sure we're clamping the hammer so it's not going to go anywhere, yeah. There we go. There's our pin, it's pretty loose, like I said, just pushes straight through. And that'll allow us to gently, there we go, pull the hammer out, and then again we've got our hammer spring and plunger there, nothing else in there. There's our little hammer. And then we want to remove, if we're going to remove the trigger itself, again it's a one-piece trigger, like I said, pretty rudimentary. One-piece trigger, we're going to push this pin out here. I can't remember if this one needs tapping out or if it'll just push out. Oh, it might just push out, look. There we go. Just a single pin, none of them are captive. And then again, we're just going to make sure nothing flies out the gun by putting our hands over it. And then this trigger should just about wiggle out of there, look, like this, because you've got this little roller bar there to contend with. But yeah, there's our single piece trigger and sear there. And we should have a spring, no plunger on this spring, just so you're aware, if you take it apart and it fires out when you're looking for a plunger, because everything else has plungers on it but not this one. Sorry, I'll show you these. So this pin here is just for this roller. I won't bother taking out, it's just a roller. Likewise, one here as well there. And then we've got this one, this bottom one here is for the safety. There's a little spring on that and just allows the safety to move. That's, like I said, that safety is, I think, garbage, but there you go. And then there's another little roll pin there, and I think, oh, that one, I can't find a purpose for that other than to engage this little spring detent. You can see how this aluminium's already wearing quite badly. This is about 1,000 rounds in. And that just mates up into there. You can feel that, listen, when it clicks in. So that's just basically that roll pin's there just to be like a bit of reinforced steel, essentially, instead of aluminium, just to allow that roll pin to not just groove a channel and not actually latch in. I should really try and find my armourer's block, shouldn't I? So there's our roll pin. Pop that in there so we don't lose it. Then we've got our little safety detent spring there. Oh, look at that, what's that? An Instagram notification for Range 23. If you're not already on the Instagram, get on there. Some good content on there. And then we've got our little little cross bolt safety there. And that is that. There's nothing else in there, I don't think, is there? Is this detent going to come out or not? Oh, there it is. It is. There's our plunger for our safety there, and the spring with it. Put all them in there. Now you see, someone smarter than me would have multiple ice cream tubs to put those things in rather than sticking everything in one, because it's going to be fun putting this back together, right? So that's the gun pretty much stripped down as far as we're going to want to go today. So the only other thing you may want to consider doing is potentially removing this screw, getting this roller out of there to tidy up this action bar here, which I will be doing in the future. Let's say also these rollers, 2 rollers on this assembly here. Again, I'll do that in the future just to kind of slick them up, polish them up, maybe even change them out, to be fair. And obviously you've got your 2 shell latches inside your receiver. I don't know if that comes across on camera there, but again, they're just held in with 2 roll pins either side, so you can just tap them through, and they are on springs as well. But for this video today, I'm not going to do it. It's pretty self-explanatory how to do that if you ever want to work on them or replace them. So guys, now we've got our shotgun stripped down into its major and minor components. Let's go ahead and look at some of them in some more detail. I'll go through why in the video I said the build quality was Turkish, not overly refined, should we say, in certain areas. Also, point to note as well, on the video when I said it was Turkish, I put up a picture of a Turkish flag and the character Turkish from Snatch. And let me tell you, you don't want to naively Google Turkish Snatch on Google Images, because you'll get more than you bargained for. We'll start with this trigger assembly, this trigger housing, and you can see we've got some wear here. We're starting to groove a channel in with that spring detent. I guess it's only natural, obviously it's aluminium. It's good that we've got the reinforced steel rope in there, so there's always something for that detent to latch over. That's quite nice. But we can see the rollers, they're not potentially the best fit. There's a bit of play in there, a bit of slack. Will it cause any issues? Maybe, maybe not. Same again with this one here. I'm going to take these out and see if I can slick these up a little bit. Also, maybe just take a bit of material off this action here, smooth that out, just so we've not got any snagging points, any catching points. Like I say, I have had a slight, ever so slight issue with the gun where the action seems to lock every now and again. Needs quite a lot of hammer to take it out. But I think, like I say, well, you see, it'll become apparent in a minute what I think what's causing that. So if we look at this action bar here, this is the actual lever mech that pulls the bolt, these action bars back and actuates your action there. We can see, well, I hope it's coming up on camera, how rough some of this machining is on there. Lots of machining marks, lots of marring on there as well. It's clearly been hand finished with a file, and it's just not as smooth as I think it should be, really. I think I'm gonna get some fine grit, polish this up, clean up some of this marring. I mean, you can see in here where they've tried to put this this little like radius inside here to smooth it up, but it's clearly been done on like a hand mill, and they've gone too far, and they've slotted the inside of here. That's not actually the worst machining on one of these parts. If we take a look at these action bars, and I don't know if how well this will come up in the light, but you can see here some of the machining marks on here. These aren't just finishing marks, that's just really, really rough gouging. And you can see we've got it all the way down the bars on both sides there. And then turning over, again, underneath, not too bad, but we've got, again, like here, look, this is just a great big gouge on there. That's clear. I can't see how it's not been done on a hand mill, and someone's just wound it in a little bit too far. Again, on the insides, this really, really rough machining that we can see. And again, on this side, really, really rough machining. This one's probably the worst one there, worst example of it there. But yeah, just not the most refined. Like I say, big gouges out there. It's just not good, is it? It still doesn't seem to affect the operation of the gun as such. But again, I'm just going to make sure I slick all these up. I might re-profile some of these little chamfers on there just for the action bars to operate a bit more smoothly. What else? Oh, this is a magazine tube. You can see here, we obviously had the two nuts, one for the barrel, one for the handguard. But this has obviously been turned down, this thread has been turned down in one go all the way along. And then they've decided to come in and machine the thread off here, which I don't understand why you'd do it, really. It's just adding cost and time to the production. Why don't you just leave it on? They're both the same thread. The barrel nut has to come off this one and back onto this one and then back off of it again. Why don't you leave it as one solid piece? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I know in Vincishooter's got a really good stripped down video as well. You should definitely check that out. He goes quite in depth to it and talks about some of the modifications he's done to his gun. And I think he said he had, or he'd seen one that someone had pulled the barrel nut off and actually got it cross-threaded on here, which is not good. Like I say, if they left that one piece, it's no drama, is it? Easy life. So that's an annoyance. And another less obvious issue on the gun was where the multi-chokes are threaded into the barrel. They haven't been done concentric to the barrel, to the bore, and they're ever so slightly off-centre. You can't probably see it on the camera. I'll have to get some, maybe try and get some photos of it. But you can see it's where it's been machined down into the barrel. It's not been cut concentrically, like I say, and you end up having the choke just ever so slightly sat off. Oh, focus, you bastard! There you go. Look, there's no carbon on that side, and then, oh, what's going on here? It's not caused me any issues as such. I've fired bird shot, buckshot, even some slugs through this, and I've not noticed any detriment to accuracy or kind of grouping or anything like that. But take that for what you will, you know, it's me behind the gun shooting slug. I'm kind of shooting a group like that at 50 yards. So take that for what you will, but it is a bit of a letdown, you know, it's a proper Turkish rim job, if you will. Bit of a shame. It's I don't know if anyone else has got that issue with the gun. If they have, you can let me know in the comments. It'd be interesting to hear from you. But yeah, it's just, again, just somewhere else that we see that's a slight less refinement on the gun. And nowhere is that more apparent than on this piece here, the actual receiver of the gun. Now, you might look at that and say, well, it seemed pretty nice to me. And yeah, it is. It's probably one of the nicer finished parts on the gun. The machining's lovely on it, actually. No issue at all. Inside's nice. There's even the internal. There's no rough edges or sharp edges or anything to kind of sprag yourself on. We've got obviously the threading for the magazine tube and also the stock there. It's quite nicely finished. Nice even port cut on there. Really good. And then you come to the front here where we've got the fore-end retaining plate. This is just a piece of pressed steel. Again, that's quite a nice piece. It fits really snug into the fore-end there. No problem with that whatsoever. But you may look at how it's actually fastened in to the receiver. And to the untrained eye, you might think, well, Jesus, Bob, they look like fucking wood screws to me. But who'd go through all the effort of machining this lovely receiver and threading it and finishing it as well as they have, and then just go and butchering some fucking wood screws? Yeah! Shocking. And do you know what the worst part about it is? It's 2022 and they've used Phillips head screws, not even posi drive. Oh, sickening. Yeah, look at that. Just, wow. Just drill 2 pockets in there and fuck it, let the wood screws tap themselves in, right? And to put everything back together, guys, it's just a real simple case of just reversing everything we've done there. I've already got the safety in there. It just pushes in and, like I say, everything just drops in. Just make sure you get it the right way around. So it's turning them off the right way around. Next job is to put the trigger itself in with this little spring, and again I like to do this upside down so it doesn't fall out of that little pocket it sits in. The trigger as well, I'm going to probably just smooth off the edges on the trigger there where it sits in the housing. It is a little bit scratchy as it rides. It's got a lot of contact surface on the sides on this aluminium housing. Like I say, it's not the best trigger. Hammer next. Are we going to do the hammer next? Yeah, so we're going to hammer spring and our plunger. And now when you sit this pin in, you want to make sure this side is flush and this side is sitting out, because you'll see when we put the shell lifter back on why that's important. And there we go, we've got our functioning trigger. And then we put our cross pin in again. And you see the hammer pin just sits over that little recess there, look, for that. So we've got our working shell lifter mech. So that's that piece, all back together. Next we've got the bolt to do then. So again, just the reverse of what we did a minute ago. We can line it up and drop our pin in again from the top, because it's only goes in one way. There we go. And then that just wants a little few taps down. You'll feel it stop, and it sits in that little recess there. And next we want to get our firing pin and our locking lug. Sit the locking lug in like this, drop it in and let it fall down. Once it's in there, it's not going to go anywhere. Then we can slide our firing pin with the spring on. Make sure we line up our little recess there for the pin. And there we go. And then probably best to do this on a vise or an armorer's block or something, because we're going to have to push this in whilst we knock this pin through. So I'm going to do this on the vise just out of shot. Okay, and there's our bolt assembly put back together. Our firing pin there, extractor's nice. And locking lug. Okay, let's fix the stock back onto the gun, and I'll show you another little kind of annoyance with this in a minute. So we just line them up, drive our bolt in. Now you don't need a load of torque on that, because obviously you're threading that steel bolt into an aluminium tapped receiver, or threaded receiver should I say. Another little kind of annoyance is, if you see here, I'll get some photos again, is the wood for the stock is profiled ever so slightly larger than the tapered end of the receiver there, and we end up with about 1 millimetre of wood protruding around the outside. It's not an issue at all when you're shooting or anything, it just looks a bit naff when you look at it up close, but it's certainly not a deal breaker. Right, we'll put the end plate back on. Now we've got our stock back on and all our component parts built back up, we can start actually reassembling the gun. So first things first, we're going to want bish bash bosh and that. Yes, this is what we're going to want. So we have to first of all slot this action bar through here and then feed it through the receiver so it's just sticking out like that, look. And we're going to line it up with the action bars there, with that hole, and just pop that pin through. Oh, first time, look at that, lovely. So once we get the pin through these bars here and they're joined together, we can put the bolt back on. Just sits on those action bars there, finds its place nice and flush, and those action bars will just sit in the recesses in the receiver, and that should just push straight in like so. And then we get this big jangly mess of a trigger group, and again we have to put it in, and then we have to put it up and then backwards, sorry, to put it in. So because there's that lug to sit on there, so you can wiggle it. Sometimes you can wiggle it into position. That's about right there. Sometimes you might just want a tiny little bit of tapping on there just to seat it. And then we have our main cross pin to go in. Lovely job. And then we need to just line up our lever down. And there we go. Our action's working. Right. Next job, mag tube and spring and all that good stuff. So first of all, put our end cap in, then seat our spring down in there. I like to sit the follower in the gun when I do this. Just guide it on, and then we just want to make sure that spring is actually going into the mag tube and not springing out like this. None of them coils are jumping out. Look at that, lovely jubbly. And then imperative that we don't cross thread it, so you want to take care not to cross thread. I will be Loctiting down everything on this gun once I've finished messing around with it. Nothing fancy, just a bit of 243 just to stop anything walking. Our next job is to get the barrel in the gun, and I remember when I picked this up from Practical Shooting Supplies, they were fairly new guns in. Of course, there's no manuals with these whatsoever. And the two guys were swapping out the barrel for the 13.5 from, I think, an 18. And they could not get it in the gun. They were messing about. They had one of them hanging off this end of the gun, the other one trying to push the barrel in. It was kind of like the Chuckle Brothers, you know, to me, to you, to me, to you. And I've seen a few other people say, like, you've got to have the bolt in a certain position and things like that. But the easiest way to put the barrel in is to fully close the action, make sure the bolt is fully forward, and then the barrel will just slide straight on if he gets it lined up like that. Easy life, straight in, no drama. Got to make sure that bolt's slid forward though, because if the bolt's back like that, it won't go in. It'll just end up sitting against it. So make sure the bolt's forward, barrel straight in every time. Our barrel retaining nut to put on. Voila, I'm just going to hand tight these down. Fore end. And lastly, our mag tube nut. And there we go. One fully functioning FQ12. Right then guys, that was my deep dive on the FQ12. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly think it's an interesting gun. Hope everything came across well on camera. I know it's sometimes hard to get all the intricate little bits there, but if there's anything you want to know more on, just give us a shout in the comments. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, check out the other socials. You'll be all about that social media life here. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I will see you in the next video.